Hello, welcome back to RC Video Reviews. Today I'm going to walk you through the configuration of the Detrum Z3 Autopilot. Before I get into the review, I'd like to give a big shout out to BitGo Hobbies who sponsored this video by providing this Detrum Z3 Autopilot for review purposes. If you're in the market for any Detrum stabilization equipment, make sure you check BitGo out. They've been a very good partner to the channel. They've provided lots of equipment for me to do reviews and show you what you get and how it works and how to set it up. And for that reason, if you're in the market for this type of equipment, I know they would appreciate it if you check their website out and use them to source your Detrum radio equipment. All right, let's get to why you're here. The Z3 Autopilot has 6 PWM outputs. It's got channels 1 through 6. And you'll notice on this radio configuration, this is a very basic configuration where I've got aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder on channels 1 through 4. That should be normal for all of you. Then you'll see on channel 5, I've got a mode switch, and I've labeled these components over here so you can see how I'm using them on the radio. So channel 5 is my mode switch, and it's just a 3-position switch. There's nothing special about it, just a 3-position switch with no modifiers. Okay, you'll notice on channel 6 I've got another switch, SD, and that is labeled RTH. That stands for return to home. And then on channels 7 and 8 I've got gear and flaps. Here's the important bit about this. On the Z3, the output channels are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? But 5 and 6 are internal to the stabilizer. 5 and 6 are mode and return to home. On your radio, you set up channels 1, 2, 3, 4 just like normal, and you connect servos, aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder, just like I have it on this radio screen. Then on channels 5 and 6, those are not PWM outputs, those are internal channels. So you set those for a 3-position switch, or actually the return to home can be 2-position. But your mode switch, channel number 5, that needs to be a 3-position switch. And then if you have any other auxiliary items, 7 and 8, channel 7 and 8 on your radio, those get output on PWM pins 5 and 6. That's the important takeaway. So if you have gear and flaps, you want to put those on channels 5 and 6 on the Z3 respectively. Okay, and I'm going to show you what that looks like inside. So that's it. That's the radio configuration. That is a brain-dead, simple, and easy radio configuration for the Z3. That's everything you need right there. And this is tested and works. Okay, I've got the Detrum 3-in-1 programming card, and I love this card because it's the standard interface for all the Detrum stabilization equipment that you've got. Before I get into the configuration, I'd like to show you what the buttons do on the Detrum 3-in-1 programming card. And this is the device, if you don't have any other Detrum gear, this is the device you use to configure the stabilizer. Okay? So on the left-hand side, you've got an up arrow and down arrow. They let you navigate up and down through the menu screens. On the left-hand side, the top button is a back button or like an escape button, and then the bottom button is enter. So if I wanted to go into fly mode, for example, option number 1, I press enter, and then I can use these buttons to move up and down. Okay, switch position 1, 2, and 3. You can see I've got mine set for off, normal, and safe. The way that correlates on the radio is in the up position right here, it's off, middle is normal, down is safe. That's simple. And remember, on the radio configuration, you just need a 3-position switch, no modifiers. And then when you're in your 3-in-1 programming card, just make sure your configuration looks like this. There are other options. If you want to press enter here, you can press the up and down arrow buttons to see that you can change switch 1 to be other things if you want. There's an acro mode, safe mode, normal mode, and off. Okay, let's talk a little bit about gains. You see I've got yaw gain, roll gain, and pitch gain. They're all the same, so I'm just going to show you one, but they all work the same way. So I'm going to go into pitch gain here, and you can see I've got an angle gain and a rate gain. Angle controls the rate at which the plane will roll around, pitch around the pitch axis, and then the rate gain shows the distance that the servo will travel to execute corrections on this axis. Okay, so if you set your rate gain higher, your deflection will be more. If you set your rate gain lower, your deflection will be lower. Okay, so you don't want violent maneuvers. as I've tried the iStone stabilizer and the Z3, these default games seem to work very well. I haven't had any cause to change them on any of the planes I've flown this with so far. Okay, the next option, number 1, is direction. If you test your stabilizer and say you pitch your nose down and then the elevator also goes down, that's backwards. You need to reverse that, and here's where you do it. In the pitch gain section, you just go under direction and change normal to reverse. The next option you'll see in here is roll offset and pitch offset. And what that means is if your Z3 stabilizer is mounted in the plane and it's not completely flat, say it's pitched up a little bit, you can go in here under offset and add a negative value to basically work like an elevator trim. And the same thing on roll. So the way you test this in flight is you click it on stabilize mode, and if the plane flies straight and level, you're good. If it continues to try and nosedive or climb, you come in here and adjust your offset accordingly. Either add or subtract offset and then try it again. The next option is the mounting direction. So I'm going to press enter here, and the way I've got mine set up is up. So that's the normal configuration, but if you can't mount it that way, then you might have to go in and make a change here. So the options are down, right, and left. You'll have to test this directions. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe if you have it mounted with the mount direction is right, that means it's on the starboard side of the plane, and if it's left, it's on the port side of the plane, and if it's down, the numbers face down toward the belly of the plane. Okay, my mount direction is normal or up, so I'm going to leave it set that way. And then the last option in here for configuration on the 3-in-1 card is wing type. Mine is obviously set to normal because it's a normal airplane, but if you have a V-tail or a delta wing, you can come in here and make changes to set it for delta or V-tail. The difference between delta and V-tail is where you mix elevator and rudder, and then delta is where you're mixing ailerons and elevator. Okay, but in my case it's normal, so I'm going to leave it there. And then you'll notice there's one other option in here, and that's DSM bind. That's if you need to bind the Z3 stabilizer to a DSM receiver. That's it. That's every single menu option on the iStone stabilizer or the Detrum Z3 3-in-1 programming card. When you're done, all you have to do is unplug it. I've learned by playing with it that once you make a change, that change is implemented the second you make the change. So you don't even really have to reboot, although I'll always reboot my stuff. All right, now I want to walk over the physical wiring so you can see what I've got inside. Starting with channel 1, which is right here on the top, I've got aileron, then elevator, then throttle, and then rudder. Remember what I told you, gear and flaps, they go on channels 5 and 6 respectively. And then my S-bus connection to my receiver is connected to the S-bus port on the Z3. And the GPS plugs all the way in the bottom. As you're looking at it, it's the bottom right corner if you look at it from top to bottom. And then you can see I've got my GPS mounted in there, and yes, it works. I definitely have a canopy that sits over top of it, but it doesn't matter, it works. Okay guys, that is the front to back configuration of the Z3 Autopilot. Let's go fly it. Okay guys, if you've never flown a GPS equipped plane, there's one thing you might not be aware of, and that's when you power up, you want to do it near where the airplane should fly if it has to come home. So that's why I don't power it up at the bench. I'm over here on the field to do my power up. On the runway, actually. I'm going to take my canopy off and plug everything in. And remember, there is a little bit of a different sequence involved when you have an autopilot as well. We'll cover that in just a minute. After the receiver binds to the radio, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it in the sunlight, but the stabilizer is showing me a red icon. That means it's not armed yet. In order to arm it, you have to hold your throttle and rudder position all the way down and to the right. And when you do that, you hear the control surfaces move. Now I can do a check and I've got control of the plane. So that means we're armed and ready to go. Now we can put the cover on and go fly. All right, you guys know how the weather in Florida works. When I want to fly, it's too windy. And when I want to show how a stabilizer works, I get nothing. So look, the flag's not even moving. Isn't that something? I love it, man. It's like karma has been having a go with me lately. Okay. The main thing I want to show you is not stabilization. I think you guys are just going to have to trust that the stabilization works. I'll try and show you straight and level flight, but the main thing I really want to show you is the return to home, because that's the money on this thing. With that GPS unit, that's what you're after, is that return to home. So let me get her up in the air and we'll try it out. Isn't that Pilatus a pretty plane? It's big too. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. I thought it'd be close to Millennium Master, but it's not. It's quite a bit bigger. All right, here we go. So just get it up in the air and get a little bit of altitude. Now, when you first flip a switch on these stabilizers, don't do it when you're close to the ground. Do it when you can. What I do is I keep my finger on the switch and I'm going to activate it and I'm going to make sure it works. And if it's something goes cattywampus, I'm going to turn it off real fast. So here's stabilizer. That's wind rejection, and that seems to be working just fine. I don't see any adverse reaction, but I also don't have any wind. So with that in mind, let's try the auto level. That's auto level, and again, no adverse conditions at all. It looks to be flying just fine. Now it's time to hit return to home. Again, I'm going to hover my finger over that switch in case something goes wrong. There it is. That's return to home. You can see the plane, and here's my hand. Look at it maintaining the throttle too. It just climbed pretty sharply, but it maintained the throttle. And just like the other Z3, the other iStone GPS units, the SR86AG, it's doing the same thing. It's hovering right over that runway. Listen to that throttle. Can you hear it? All right, there you go. That's the Z3. That's the Detrum Z3 Autopilot. Return to home. Well, it looks like it's dropping a little bit, but it's recovering. It's getting a little close to me. Very good. The little nose up. But it seems to be doing a good job recovering. I see it changing its attitude a little bit, but it is definitely recovering. All right, now I'm going to recover the plane. I've got it back in manual mode. I'm going to turn the stabilizer completely off, and we'll bring it in for a landing. Well, there we go. There is a front-to-back configuration and flight demo of the Detrum Z3 Autopilot. It works. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, it works. You know, one thing that I'm going to point out too in the channel, because I have this Radio Master TX16S and I combined different radios, one of the first questions I got is, hey, are you going to do something with Spectrum? And I said, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to do something with Spectrum. So I went out and looked, and I saw the Spectrum receivers with just the 3-axis stabilizers were $75. That looked to be like the cheapest one, the actual Spectrum brand. So that's a big no for me. I mean, a 3-axis stabilizer receiver for $75. The Detrum Z3 goes for about $75, and then you can add a $20 XSR S-Bus receiver, and for $89, $99, you've got a full return to home suite. So I don't know why. I mean, for me, it just doesn't make any sense. I would choose this every day over a Spectrum setup. This is a FrSky XSR S-Bus receiver, micro receiver about the size of a postage stamp, connected to a $75 Detrum Autopilot. It's got full GPS, return to home. Why not? I mean, if you're going to get into that, why wouldn't you choose this model instead of something that has a third of the functionality for nearly the same price? Just doesn't make any sense to me. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the configuration review of the Detrum Z3. I'm sorry it took so long, but I'm glad I finally got this video done. If you enjoyed this content, remember, a full 70% of my view time comes from people who don't subscribe. So what are you waiting for? You know you come back to the channel, hit the subscribe button, man. Join the channel. Help me grow the channel, because the more views I get, the more videos I can make. That's just the way the system works. So I appreciate your time today. Hope you found this information useful. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy. Hello, welcome back to RC Video Reviews. Bang, beep, beep, beep. This video has been long overdue, but it has... God dang. Man, it's always something. I'm gonna try some, where was I? And then on channel 7 and 8, I've got LS and RS. LS is landing gear. You're still beeping. There's always gotta be something in my life beeping at me.